Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Mine was great and suspenseful and went champagning winning. Got myself a trophy. Anywho, we have this with, it seems like transgenders are being, not punished for their actions, as, this was meant to come at some point in chance. And, let's see what they're really cooking up here, because it seems like, you can, show your penis to somebody and then not get put in jail for it. Or at least put, not be a victim. But this is what we're talking about here. Transgender male found not guilty of indecency in YMCA locker room case. His past victim condemns verdict. Transgender male who was the subject of multiple complaints after reportedly exposing himself in the women's locker room of an Ohio YMCA has been cleared of charges of public indecency. Largely due to his weight, now a woman who says she was sexually assaulted by him is decrying the verdict. Darren Glines, who is obese, was spotted naked on multiple occasions in the women's facilities last year, but narrowly avoiding a conviction after his defense argued that his genitalia was obscured by the fat of his gut. Yeah, because that's the thing. Listen, this is not Family Guy here, alright? We're not living in a fantasy world. We're living in reality, and unless you're the person of size of a 400, 500 pound person to where you cannot walk, which this person clearly can, is, well, everything can be shown or seen. Glantz, 31, had been the subject of several complaints for incidents that occurred at the YMCA in Xenia, Ohio between November 2021 and November 2022. It first came to public attention after a local pastor penned a blog post discussing the issues with gender self-identification at the YMCA. In his post, Mark Atherton, a Christian minister, stated that he had reached out to YMCA President Dale Brunner and Vice Presidents Joshua Sullenberger and David Thompson, and had been told that the gender identification was the policy. In other words, and these are my words, with men with gender confusion who feel like a female will be able to enter and use restrooms, locker rooms, and showers alongside women and vice versa. Atherton wrote, I know a person who was told that if they objected being in facilities with someone of the opposite sex, they must use the special needs families facility. As previously reported by Redox, Glines was charged with 3 counts of indecent exposure in January of this year, but on April 28, Glines was cleared by the Xenia Municipal Court, despite 3 women having testified to seeing a naked man in the common area of the women's locker room. In his ruling, Judge David McName determined that the fact did not exist to support a finding of guilt, on the basis that Glines' genitalia was not visible as a result of other proportions of his body covering same. According to the trial witness, Glines, who weighs over 350 pounds, was found not guilty because his gut covered his genitalia area. Speaking to Redox in the public, Katasha Young says the results were devastating for the victims and their families, but added that she wasn't surprised. Young had been called to act as a rebuttal witness on behalf of the prosecution. An employee of the YMCA in the nearby town of Fairborn, she had a disturbing personal experience with Glines that resulted in her having to get a protective order against him. I used to be more pro-trans rights on this particular issue, Young explains. Noting that she had met Glines after he had begun visiting the Fairborn YMCA. During the first conversation, Glines told her he was transgender in the effort to have her refer to him with she/her pronouns. But what was a friendly relation quickly turned to a disturbing turn as Glines began to press Young for information on her masturbation habits, sex, and other intimate topics. When he started sharing his sexual fantasies, I really tried hard to tolerate it. I tried to be open to the idea that it was maybe just an aspect of transitioning, Young says. I had wanted to be sympathetic and compassionate. Young says in November 2022, members of the YMCA began coming in and demanding their memberships be canceled. It was because of the locker room policy saying that people could use the locker room what they identify with, Young explains. One couple came in and my entire workforce ended up surrounding them because of the wife was going off. She was asking what is a woman and demanding we tell her what a woman was. Young says the wife turned to her husband and asked staff if he could identify as a woman, to which staff replied that he would just have to change his gender marker on his YMCA membership to use the women's facilities. At the time, Young did not know the patron outrage was related to Glines' behavior at the Xenia YMCA and assumed it was due to transphobia. Her assumption was bolstered after Glines began complaining to her that he had been facing discrimination in Xenia. He said he didn't feel comfortable at the Xenia YMCA anymore, and I did feel bad for him, and generally thought he was legitimately trans and facing discrimination. Young says then unaware that Glines had been accused of exposing himself to women and girls. Girls would also be young children, ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know. I was even suggesting we arrange a protest. I was all in for supporting him through the attacks. Prior to the incident, Young says she had given little consideration to how gender identification could be abused. I mean, yeah, it was a fear, but since I wasn't seeing it, it seemed like something that didn't happen. It felt like no one could get away with that. Expressing sadness over his treatment, Glines invited Young out for coffee to discuss his experience, and she accepted under the belief that she was supporting a member of a marginalized group. The two met at a local Waffle House in early December, and Young says Glines spent a lot of time condemning a local pastor, unaware that the pastor's wife had been one of the women who had complained about Glines exposing himself to her. In an attempt to be comforting, Young gave Glines a friendly hug at the end of the discussion, but what was meant to be a friendly gesture quickly turned into a sexual assault. Young, a survivor of child sexual abuse, says Glines grabbed her genitals and rear, leaving her shocked and disgusted. The assault is stacked on another similar trauma from my childhood. Is not new to me, Young says. But the thing that upsets me the most is the foolery. He had let me believe that he was a friend, and he told me that he wasn't interested in me sexually. Then, as I'm trying to comfort him with a hug, I'm thrown for a loop with world-shattering reality. She reported the incident to the police the next day and provided Redux and the Publica with a copy of the report. Police noted that Young was reluctant to press charges but felt the need to do so in the event Glines were a target to others. Young explains that following the assault, Glines began to frequent the Faribault YMCA. At times, he would have known she was scheduled to work. He knew my work schedule because I had previously told him to him when he asked, so 3 times he showed up while I was working, Young says. Each time I fight or flight, ran and hid behind another coworker, he would tell me when Darren had gone. Young became so anxious that she thought a protective order which was granted at the beginning of January. Just 3 short weeks later, Young learned that Glines had been charged with indecent exposure at exiting YMCA. Because of her own experience with Glines, Young contacted the Greene County prosecutor and offered her testimony. On the outcome of the trial, Young says she is devastated for the women involved and worries that the verdict will embolden Glines to commit a similar act of either assault or exposure without fear of repercussion. I definitely think he will try what he did to me with someone else, especially with a not guilty verdict. He will feel emboldened to be exposed, but also he will have access to more sympathizers who were just as I was, ultimately naive and fooled until he makes his move. Young is still working at a Faribault YMCA and is currently under the protection of the restraining order, but worries that in the event the order is not renewed, come its January 2024 expiration, that she will be forced to find another work in an effort to avoid him. I do live in a constant anxiety that he will come into my workplace or that I will run into him somewhere. At least while the protection order is in place, I can assure myself he will be arrested if that happens. The incident in Xenia is just one in a series of controversies surrounding YMCA locations across the United States, allowing males in the women's facilities, sometimes at the expense of female patrons. In August of 2022, Redux interviewed a senior citizen in the small community of Port Townsend, Washington, who had been banned from her local YMCA running swimming pool after raising concerns about a transgender male who had been in the shower rooms. Julie Jamin, 80, had been a guest at the Mountain View community pool for over 35 years. Speaking of Redux, Jamin revealed that on July 26th, she witnessed a trans-identified male using the female locker rooms at the pool and became concerned due to the fact that he appeared to be watching the little girls as they changed out of their bathing suits. Jamin picked up international attention after holding her own small protest outside of the YMCA, quickly getting the support of women's rights activists around the world. Later that same month, Jamin's supporters held a rally in Port Townsend, which was met with violent backlash from trans activists. As we all know, there are always violent and never non-violent. In January, a strikingly similar incident was reported out of Santee, California, where a young woman became the target of trans activist ritual after she took to a city council meeting to report that she had been seen a male in the YMCA locker rooms. 70-year-old Rebecca Phillips teared up as she recounted her experience at the January 11 meeting, stating she had seen a naked male in the women's locker room. She continued, "I immediately went back into the shower, terrified, and hid behind their flimsy excuse for a curtain until he was gone. I ran into a bathroom stall to change it as quickly as I could, organizing my thoughts to share them with the people at the front desk. As I did so, I could only think of my 5-year-old sister who would bring me to the gym during the summer." Which, by the way, I did a report this quite a few months ago about that whole situation. So what you're seeing here is constantly happening, and I want you ladies here again see what's happening. I really want you guys to see and let me know how many more of you women have to be sexually assaulted or, God forbid, raped until you start fighting back. Because at this point, it's just becoming asinine. We need to stop this. And by all means, the only reason why I want to stop it, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, is because of the kids. The kids don't deserve to go through this. The kids have no right to have to go through this. They suffer to the stupid decisions that you women make that tend to be voting Democrat and making it okay. Now, again, as I say, is voting Republican good? Yes and no. There are only a few Republicans or a handful that are good. But again, if you keep voting Democrat, you're going to keep on harming children. And since you're going to keep doing this, it's going to be a problem for everyone involved, including yourself. So, we need to stop this monstrosity. And as I said, I'll make it painfully clear again. The only reason why I want to stop this is because we can protect the kids. Women, it is not you that I really care for in this instance of this reality. Because if you're going to vote your rights away and all this other insanity to it, then by all means. But what I will not allow is the women is to let the children suffer because of your stupid decisions. I won't let that happen. So in this case, I have to be defender of this, so the kids can actually be able to live in a world where they don't have to be facing some type of raping situation almost everywhere they go, or they're being sexually abused everywhere they go. It is not something that I want in our society, and it's something I will fight back. So, women, be with me, fight back, if not for your own self, at least for the kids. Because this is getting insanity, this is getting ridiculous, and we need to go back to reality. Alright, that's it for the video. Like, subscribe, share, as always. Take care.